Well, Jeff, thanks so much for joining us on another edition of Will and Friends Live. Jeff Terreros is a property manager for the company Good Steward Property Management Group. And we're just going to have Jeff talk a little bit about himself and how he started as a property manager.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Will, thanks for inviting me to talk to you and whoever's watching this. So I fell in love with real estate at age 19. I can clearly remember I had a family member that invited me to a seminar. It was all about real estate investing at that point in time. And I said, you know what, this is it for me, real estate. I didn't know exactly where I would fit. Fast forward, I got started in the sales market. I love the company Keller Williams Realty. A big shout out to them. They have the model, right? And then from there, I didn't like, in all transparency, I didn't like the volatility of the sales market. Best year we had a total of 25 sales, which is good here in Southern California, only to be followed by the following year for us. And it was just like, hey, I'm doing the same activity, but I'm not getting the same results. So how can I stay in this, in this business, real estate, but not feel the fluctuation of the market? And that's where I found property management. And in all transparency, it's not for everybody. I got to say, if you don't like accounting, if you don't have a strong background in accounting 101, you're probably going to drive yourself nuts because
Jeff, let me stop you there. Are you talking about getting into it as a business, like you're being a property manager, or are you just talking about people even purchasing property to rent it out and use
No. So I'm just saying, like in the business of property management. Now, when you're handling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rentals for your own, it's pretty simple. Rent's coming in, paying off expenses and so forth. But the moment you start getting a dozen properties or so, and now you're managing on behalf of somebody else, you're adding a whole layer of complexity. You got a lot of money moving around, and you have to, have a good understanding on basic accounting, right? As far as debits, credits, and so forth. But anyway, fast forward, it's now me and my wife. I'm a real estate broker. We operate our own property management company, and we're focused on residential, mostly single family residences, condos, townhomes, and then small multifamily. Here in California, you can manage up to 15 doors and not need to have an on-site resident manager. So it's been a good niche for us. We love it, and it keeps us busy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know we were talking about there's so many changes that has been actually happening. It's not so many, but I think there's a lot of implications from the new laws that have passed down from the state of California that impact property managers, real estate investors, homeowners who have multiple properties. And most people actually don't know about it or don't know what to do in light of the new laws that have come into place. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so look, the number one item that comes to mind is rent control. I think I mentioned this to you before. As with any big news, right? It's like, hey, it's the talk of the moment, and then all of a sudden something else comes up, coronavirus, and then it's like, hey, off of everybody's mind, but it's still here. People are still being affected by it. So in a nutshell, for most people out there that own a condo, a townhome, a single family residence, it's not going to affect them. And that's most of your small time investors. It's the people that own multifamily, starting with a duplex or more, that get affected by it. And then now, they are subject to, or their property is subject to rent control. So now the question is, okay, if I'm not affected, and I want to make sure that your listeners hear this, is if they're not affected, great, good for them. But guess what? We're in California. You still have to disclose to your resident that that property is not affected by rent control. The reason why I bring this up is the last thing that you want is a resident hearing in the news, hey, you know what, great, I live in a single family residence, I'm not supposed to be paying so much in rent. Little do they know, that property is not affected by it, only to find out at lease renewal that, hey, that's not the case. And then now they're trying to, sue you, saying like, hey, you didn't tell me that my property or, my home is not subject to rent control. So if they're out there, they would have to seek legal counsel, see if there's a form that they could purchase to disclose. If they have a buddy in the business that's a real estate agent, that person can help them out.
I wonder who. I
Right?
don't know. You never know. but
there you go.
maybe
There
me,
you go.
maybe you.
That's right. But look, no, the form is simple. It's RCJC, rent control and just cause. It's an addendum, very easy to understand, 3 pages long. You just check this little box that says, hey, the property's not subject to rent control, and off they go. They have to get their resident to sign it by July 1st. By July 1st. Okay?
What happens if they don't sign it?
Here's the thing is we don't know, right? If the type of individual is not going to be one that's be very picky, it really doesn't matter. But if that person comes back and says, hey, you never told me, that's the person that, may get in trouble. And it's not so important that the resident signs it anyway. It's just so much that you can notate your file saying, hey, I provided it to them. I brought it to their attention. I signed it. They chose not to. Now it's on them. If they ever come back, they can't say, hey, well, I didn't know. So.
Right, you're just making sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed in the sense of logistics, and you as a property manager making sure all those things are covered, or you as an owner investor renting out your property is covered.
Exactly. So that's one of the items for most people that are not affected. Now, if you are affected by rent control, meaning you have a duplex, if you're self-managing, you want to make sure you get this disclosure out to your resident. If you have a property manager, you want to make sure that you check in with them and make sure that they are getting that form signed, right? If you're looking to buy, because this is affecting somebody that we're looking to buy, we got an agent that reached out to me. He's helping his client, buy an investment property out in Long Beach, and it's going to be about an 8-unit building, right? The point is, before, guess what? An owner would buy a building. If you see that the rents are way under market, you're as an owner like, hey, this is a value add opportunity. We can come in here, do some repairs, increase the rents, and off we go. Well, not anymore, right? If you can only increase it by 5% plus CPI, that's going to limit how much additional rent you can get from your resident. So
this is all over California, right? Not just LA County, San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange County. It's all up and down California.
Correct. Now, you can have some counties that have stronger restrictions. And then that would be an override to rent control. But for, even if a county has nothing in regards to rent control, it affects all of California. How
about for the ADUs, the accessory dwelling units, granny flats, casitas, those things? Would those be considered multi-unit?
Don't quote me on this one because the answer is I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that it's not. I believe that it's not because it's part of a residential property and it's not multifamily. So, hey, well, you're cutting.
Sorry.
Say that again.
I appreciate your openness and candidness there in that sense, because there's so many things that are changing, and even with the things that we do know, we don't necessarily know what the implications are for that. And so it's ongoing development. And Jeff, I know you are a man that loves to learn, be educated, being on top of the information. So once you do have a very clear 100% certainty about that, I'm sure you'll be able to inform the public about ADUs, granny flats, whether or not they are multi-unit, and having us be cognizant of that, because I know ADUs have been passed as acceptable, whether or not certain cities are going to allow that to happen. We know those NIMBYs, not in my backyard, cities, not allowing that.
I think it's a great idea, just not here.
Exactly. You can go to somewhere else. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah. Now, how about this? What? I'm sorry.
No, I said even in thinking of like, hey, this city, and I don't want to say or mention any cities either. It's like, hey, this is a great idea, so long as it's done elsewhere. But no, you're absolutely right. It's some of these items up until they get contested, right? Yeah, up until something gets contested, it's like, hey, this is the intent of the law, but and then they realize like, okay, well, you know what, now that we're at the court level, let's go ahead and interpret the law and then see how we rule on this one. And that becomes an example moving forward. So with the ADUs, I know that, big picture, they made it a lot easier this year for those to come out, but it remains to be seen as like, hey, how many will be built? What are going to be the restrictions on that? Are there casitas out there that are not technically ADUs? And then now that people are renting it out. We ran into a situation last year where it was very gray. The owner wanted to push the back with this weekend. Again, it unfortunately here in California, it does take someone getting sued, right, for those things to kind of pan out and see, what the courts decide.
And Jeff, so I know right now in the current environment, people sheltering in place, hibernating because of COVID-19 and coronavirus. Have you had tenants move out or recently had to list properties for rent in light of this?
So those are two separate questions. That move out and then put properties for rent. So let's address those. We have not ran into a move out yet, but with that said, because we talked about this yesterday, you were asking me in regards to cleaning. So I called a shout out to Mike Salas from Dirt Busters. He runs a cleaning company for both residential and commercial, and they do everything from cleaning to carpet cleaning, acid washes for showers, pressure washing, the list goes on, okay? Point is, one of the things that they're doing, and I wrote it down, is they're going through a two-step process. Number one is they're cleaning the property as they usually do. And after they're cleaning, they're sanitizing / disinfecting to make sure that, hey, not only is it clean, but it's sanitized, and disinfected to make sure everything is good to go. They're using hospital-grade disinfectants. To be honest with you, I'm not really sure as to all what that entails. He said he sent me an email with the information on it, but they're taking the precautions, right? When they have their team go out there, their team is wearing the mask, the gloves, the booties for the benefit of the resident, the owner, the people there, but also the staff that's cleaning.
So that's cool. So it sounds like you have a resource. Because we don't know what the mandate is. Do we need to be giving properties once it's available to rent? Do they need to be disinfected? Do they need to be certified? Do they need to be certified that they are clean and ready to go in that regard? So we don't know, and yet at the same time, it sounds like you have a resource that's able to do that if the homeowner desires to go down that path. Yes,
and it's a great company. Mike himself, he's a veteran. So anytime that we can send business his way, you can look him up online, dirtbusters.com. Again, dirtbusters.com. You can reach out, to him and schedule a time for them to come out. They can give you an estimate, see if it's, based on their knowledge and then them assessing the job, how long it's going to take so that you know exactly what you're going to pay for before just sending somebody out there and saying, hey, here's a, blank check, go ahead and just clean my house and let me know how much it is. So, but anyway, going back to the move out, I have not had one yet, but that's very important in regards to the process to make sure that the person moving in is aware of like, hey, this is the property itself has been disinfected. Now, with that said, I was making a note here in regards to leasing. So if anything, I've seen a lot more demand in the marketplace for rentals. I mean, everybody that was in a transition period where they need to be making hasn't changed. So the question now becomes is, how do you still show the property, go about the process in the most efficient way under the current circumstances? Because, it's not good anymore to host an open house and have
we want to do that social distancing. We want to be sheltering in place and be rule abiding in that way. And we don't want to be passing it on. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where an individual owner, if they're self-managing, only has a couple of options. They can still show the property in person. Owners do is put a combination lockbox in place. Go ahead and get the information from somebody, provide them the code, then go afterwards and then themselves start sanitizing everything and then change the code. You can get them from Home Depot. It's a 4-digit code, and every single time you can just change the code, and then there you go. So if someone's self-managing, probably not the best solution, because now they're providing access and they may not have the information, but it is a way for them to not be there at the same time and yet they can still go in afterwards, disinfect everything, change the code, and they're good to go.
And I'm sure yourself and my team, myself included, we have resources in regards to doing virtual tours, whether it be just a video tour or even doing 360 photos or 3D shots, so that until we get this ban lifted, or if they don't want to go through that process of having to change the locks, having to disinfect every single time, they can just have people look at their website, look at wherever they're hosting their listing at, and take a look and make sure that, okay, they feel comfortable, they can send an application, and it's contingent upon doing an actual walkthrough of the place or something like that.
Right, absolutely. That's going to be, and this reminds me of the book, Who Moved My Cheese? And it sounds like in real estate, it's consistently being moved, right? Like, how can we involve and do a better job? One of the things that has been in the property management field, not so much in the sales side, but prevalent, is what's called self-tours. And depending on who you talk to, it can be a very heated topic. But with that said, it's worked out in property management. And here's why. If you think about it, if a sales agent has a listing, right, you want to make sure that you're there for the showing. On the flip side, if a property manager has a lease listing, right, you could have 3, 4, 5 lease listings, and it really makes it hard to accommodate every single person. Now, in the marketplace, there's half a dozen different companies that have platforms. One that we utilize is called Rently, rently.com, RENTLY.com. And the platform allows for self-tours. So somebody can register, they can look at our listing, they register online, they have to put their credit card, a picture of their photo ID, all their information. And then what we do is it goes through a safe tour, meaning we have to verify the information. We call them verify that it's them indeed, and then we can provide them access. And this gives us control, knowing that the people can still go out there, see the property, and we have all the information on file. So it makes it a lot easier to still accommodate, giving them instructions, please, make sure that you don't touch anything while you're inside the home. And we have cleaning things so they can wipe down the handle and stuff when they leave, as well as the lockbox.
Makes sense. And so, I mean, there's still ongoing things that are being brought to us in regards to news about COVID-19, the virus, and the implications for rental markets. And as we find out more information, I'm sure Jeff and his team would be able to communicate that to us. Or if you have any questions, you can already hear from this conversation that I'm having with Jeff right now. He has a wealth of information, and he gives. He wasn't holding back on who his vendor was. He wasn't holding back on his process or program he uses to vet tenants. He's a giver. And so if you have any questions in light of the rental market, investment, property management, feel free to reach out to Jeff. We're going to get his contact information, put it in the contact or in the comment section and Facebook Live, so you can reach out to him. And if you guys have any questions, we're monitoring the comment section. So feel free to message and let us know if there's any questions you have about property management in general, specifics, whatever it may be. We have about probably another 10, 15 minutes of Jeff's time. I know he's a very busy man. So thank you again, Jeff, for coming on and talking to us and talking with us about property management. Like we talked about, there's different stages within property management that you oversee and you want to focus in on. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, what you're referring to is the resident life cycle. And what I like about this business is when I first started, learning about it, literally everything fit into one of these 4 boxes, right? The resident life cycle goes from leasing, step 1, residency, step 2, lease renewals / annual maintenance, step 3, and then step 4 being the move out process. And most items within property management are going to fit in within one of those 4 boxes. Now, one of the things that I think everybody, as it relates to the coronavirus, everybody wants to know right now: is my resident going to pay rent on the 1st? That's the question that everybody wants to know, right? And the reality is, like, hey, we don't know if the individual was affected or not. The eviction process itself, in a nutshell, has 6 steps. But let's just, for the sake of the call right now, let's just keep it very simple. right? You're going to file the, or I guess you're going to, step one is you would be filing the eviction with the court. Step two is you're going to go through the court process. And then step three is assuming you win, right? If you're in the right, then the sheriff would go ahead and do the lockout. So in Orange County, you can still file for the eviction, but it's not going to go anywhere because the court is not processing the evictions right now. And even for the people that were in the pipeline up to this point and that had won, they're not doing evictions at this point, right? That they're not doing the lockout, that last step of the process. So one of the resources that you may want to go to if you're self-managing is you want to get connected with an attorney's office that can help you draft paperwork so that if you come to a pre-negotiated rate or deal or agreement with your resident, you don't have to miss out on the rent right now, but you can agree with it as far as what that payment plan is going to be, or if they're going to catch it up, say 10%, per month up until they pay it this month or the following month, and everything gets back to normal. The one that we use is KTS. It stands for Kimball, Tyrone, St. John. If you go to their webpage, they have different packages as far as letters that they've already put together, and it's more of an agreement between the owner and the resident. So that's one of the items that we're looking at right now to see if it's necessary. And it depends on the resident. Some residents honestly haven't been affected. They work from home. I mean, you look at us in real estate, most, not all, but most of my activities still stay the same. And for a lot of industries, it's the same thing. You can just work from home. However, if your resident was affected and they can't pay, we can verify that via calling their employer, saying like, hey, did they lose their job? Do they have a decrease in pay? So that's going to be more on an owner by owner case or property by property case, and then try to reach some sort of agreement. Because look, it does the owner no good to file the eviction and being able to file it through the county, but it's not going to go anywhere. So better for them to try to work out an agreement with the resident that's going to be a win-win. So that's part of the resident life cycle. That's under the Section 2 residency. But yeah, an owner, having an owner be able to be educated about those 4 categories is important to make sure that they're operating the best way possible.
Makes sense. Makes total sense.
In the background's benefit of working from home.
Exactly. We're all having to deal with that. I have 2 kids myself, and they're jumping off the walls and breaking things and this, that, and the other. But we get to help clean it up after calls like this.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll be able to do maybe 2 or 3 more webinars, if not more than that, talking about property management, things that investors, homeowners, landlords need to be concerned about or factoring into when they're property managing, or even for tenants, right? What they should be looking for if they have the flexibility or the options of being able to pick who the best tenant is or who the best landlord is, since you have a wealth of experience of that, even in your own background, right?
Yeah, there's property management, like I shared with you. So my background is sales, right? In all transparency, I feel when I was in the sales field, I didn't really have many crazy stories. Like, hey, you help a buyer buy a property, you help a seller list the property and get it sold for top dollar. It's a great service, don't get me wrong, but there wasn't much of a story there. And with property management, it's like every week, if not at least every month for sure, there's some sort of story. One of the biggest takeaways, and it affects both owners and residents, is a lot of times, if you're a resident, right, and you're renting from an owner direct, the same way that in the marketplace, like, oh, this is the tenant from Doom, right, and they destroyed my house. Well, guess what? That's a personality, right? That's the individual. You can have an owner from Doom and, an owner that doesn't want to do repairs. So that goes both ways. I remember going to a property one time. It was a rent by owner. I was, approaching them about our services, and I go do the walkthrough, and I'm literally, I kid you not, the property is in disrepair, right? It needs to be painted. It needs to be cleaned. There's personal property both inside and outside. And as I'm taking notes on my notepad, I keep thinking like, hey, he's going to say that the work is being done or will get done. And sure enough, no, that's not the case. He basically said, hey, the property's ready to go. So back to your point is there's a lot in property management and making sure that you're treating it as a business. I think that's the main thing. It's making sure you're treating the rental, even if you have one, it's a business, right? You're collecting income, you're paying expenses, but you got to play by the rules. And if you're self-managing, great, it's good. In all transparency, property management, it's a very simple business. There's nothing that's really hard about it, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. And if you're self-managing, you have to make sure that you stay up to date in regards to what the rules are so that you can make it, do it profitable. I find for most people, between their job, they make their income elsewhere, and their time, and pretty much their time is better invested in other activities. So whether it's myself, whether it's another company out there in the marketplace, we can definitely bring value to them. But if anybody's interested, definitely reach out to a property manager to ask, like, hey, what can a property manager do for me? How can they free up my time?
So maybe that's a good segue to how we wrap this up. What are some major high-level points that we should be looking for in a great property manager, or maybe telltale signs of a bad property manager?
Okay, I'll give you top two items in regards to a bad property manager and top 2 items in regards to a good property manager. All right. So the number one thing, and we talked about this, again, goes back to the 4 points of the resident life cycle, right? Number 3 is lease renewals. In the multifamily space, guess what? Every single year there's a lease renewal. Every single year there's an annual walkthrough, right? They're looking at that unit because guess what? It's a multi-million-dollar for any of those large buildings, right? For residential, for the most part, sometimes those things don't happen. We took 3 properties, and I mentioned this to you. We took 3 properties within the last 4 months where, and we'll just stick to one for 1 second. The owner had a property manager. The property was managed for 7 years, 7 years total. Okay. Supposedly, this property manager did annual walkthroughs. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But what I do know is that they never took photos. They never shared it with the owner. So, mind you, 7 years later, we take over the property. Within the first 2 weeks, I go out and schedule a walkthrough. I do the walkthrough. We take 100 to 150 photos, and oh my gosh, it's a mess. It's a mess. The carpets are ripped up. Blinds are missing. Out of 5 residents originally, 1 had passed away. They were still on the lease. There was a new person in. There were 2 dogs. There were supposed to be no dogs in the home. You could smell the smell of smoke. So it was a nightmare. And I showed that to the owner, and she was not doing an annual walkthrough. You just don't do those for a couple of years, and that could turn into a nightmare. She ended up paying over $50,000 upon move out to get that rehab.
So Jeff, are you saying there should be annual walkthroughs even if the tenant decides to re-up the next year? You're doing a walkthrough no matter what. If they're moving out, not moving out, staying put, you're doing a walkthrough anyway. Yes,
but I'm a great person. Great, we're gonna do an annual walkthrough. But I am I am on my application, I put that I work for the church of XYZ. Awesome. We're doing an annual walkthrough, but it's just one person on a 3-bedroom house, and one is for their business and the other one is just because they have a lot of family come and visit. Great. We're doing an annual walkthrough. Look, I tell people the cost of doing an annual walkthrough, depending on the company, it could be part of their service for free, which really means that they may not do it in all transparency, or it goes up to anywhere to like $150, right? The cost of not doing an annual walkthrough, if you get a bad resident, is, hey, the property's gonna have to be rehabbed, right? And there's gonna be a lot of stuff. If you catch it on early, it's better to kick him out with a little bit of damage than it is to leave that for 2, 3, 4 years, and all of a sudden you have to do that. There's one that I had an associate of mine, they remodeled the house 5 years ago, and within 5 years, no one did a walkthrough, same thing. Property was destroyed. So We'll stick to just that one in regards to, hey, what a bad property manager doesn't do. And we'll go with one like, okay, what does a good property manager do? Same thing for step 3, we talked about the annual lease renewal and walkthrough, as well as annual maintenance. I used to see, I think I told you this before, I used to think of houses, right, or all real estate as little boxes that would spit out cash flow, because that's what TV tells you, right? It's like, hey, you buy this house, you rent it out, and then just let the money start
flowing. All the time. You see marketing, you see books, you see TVs, commercials talking about buy real estate, you'll be a millionaire. It doesn't help in that like 20 of the top 20 homes that you can make $1 million based off of real estate. 8 of those are in California. And so all you hear about is like, yeah, this is just a money machine. Once I buy something and find a renter, let it go, do my own thing, and I'm getting that cash flow, that passive income.
Yeah, mailbox. As a young adult, right now I'm an adult, but as a young adult, I'm like, hey, I get that mailbox money, right? You buy the deal, you sign it out, you lease it, and then you're sending my check. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. But here's the thing. It's like, look, the investment in real estate is phenomenal. But whether you do the management yourself or whether you hire somebody, right? You hire a professional to handle it for you, that management work still needs to get done. When I started with management, I realized like, hey, real estate deteriorates, right? Real estate is not stocks, bonds, mutual funds where you just buy it and guess what? A year later, it's just this ticker symbol on your computer screen and it either went up or down or it stayed the same. Real estate, if left unattended, right, even if the resident takes great care of the property, deteriorates. Let me give you 3 examples that most owners don't consider. The fireplace has to be swept every so many years. No one thinks about that for the most part. I should say no one, but most people don't think about like, hey, I got to sweep my fireplace, especially if it's being used. You get what's called creosote that stays in the fireplace, and that's highly flammable. Right now, mind you, we're in California. Yes, I get it. Okay, so we're not going to do that every single year, but it still has to get done every 2 to 3 years. Here's another one, the dryer vent. If you have a condominium or a townhome, guess what? It's very likely from the location of the dryer to where the exhaust vent goes out to, it could be realistically, 10, 20 feet. Over time, lint builds up there, and if it's not pushed with a brush and vacuumed on the other side, that can lead to a fire, right? And then the last one, a termite. We in sales, the time that the termite work gets done is upon the sale or the purchase of a property, right? But guess what? What happens if you have a rental property, condo, townhome, single family residence, doesn't matter, for a period of 5, 10, 15 years? For the most part, when I talk to owners, nobody did a termite, nobody does a termite inspection, only to do one and realize like, oh my gosh, I have a termite infested property, right? So that's one of the things that we pride ourselves every single year. There's a list of items that we bring up to your attention. Now, you're not required. No one's going to force you to do these things, but it's good to look at the list and say, okay, as an owner, how much am I going to put aside every year to handle these things? And it's good. It's good. The properties that get maintenance, they show better. You have to pay less money overall in general for deferred maintenance because you're staying on top of that every single year. And I got buddies of mine that, hey, I love them. They're managers, but they don't have these policies in place to have it be a good fit.
I think that's a great point that you bring up, because most people, once they have it, they wipe their hands clean and let it run, and they pray that they have a tenant that can be there for 7 to 10 years. They pay their rent on time. There are no problems. They don't call you for any issues to fix anything, and that's a great scenario. But when someone tells me, oh, I have to maintain it month or annually every single year and make sure this and that is covered, that sounds like a lot of money. But in comparison, if you're only maintaining it regularly versus a thrashed home after 7, 10 years, or even after 1 year sometimes, right? Yeah. It's way better to have that situation maintaining it on an annual basis versus when the tenant moves out.
This is the one that gets me, and I hear this quite often from owners. Hey, you know what? I must have a great resident Oh, yes. Why is that? Because he never calls me for any maintenance. It's like, okay, well, have you done a walkthrough of the property? No, no, no. You don't understand. Like, they're not calling. They're not calling because there's no maintenance, to be done. It's like, doesn't work that way. A lot of times the number one reason residents don't call is for, number one reason they don't call is because they don't want that rent to be increased. They think like, hey, if they're bothering you, right, and you're having to put money in it, then the rent's going to stay the same, or the rent's going to have to go up. So if they don't call, hey, well, I'm not bothering the owner, and little do they know, it ends up being not a good fit over a long period of time.
It sounds like it's even from a communication standpoint, it's a relationship between you and the tenant, or if you are the owner, you're the landlord, having that relationship, or maybe even laying it out front in the sense that, yes, we are planning to have increases, or no, we're not planning to have any increases in rent for the next 1 to 3 years, but we might need to reevaluate, especially in light of the current economic state, or something comes up. We'll be open to that conversation. So don't be afraid to reach out to me, and I'll be for sure reaching out to you just to make sure everything's okay.
Yes, I'm always worried about the word relationship, because that makes it sound like, hey, you know what, we're from the perspective of the resident. And don't get me wrong, and one of the first things I learned, and you'll notice in my conversations, that's just part of who I am now in regards to tenants, is not using the word tenant, using the word resident. When I worked at Greystar, huge property management company in the multifamily space, they said one thing is very true. It's like, hey, words are important, right? Words matter. Tenants, you think of tenants, toilets, and trash, and nuisance, right? A tenant is a nuisance that you have to deal with. On the flip side, a resident is a customer. A resident is somebody that you want to provide quality housing for. So from that perspective, as a property manager, we want to make sure that we take care of the residents within reason, because you have people, sometimes they go off the deep end, and they ask you for all sorts of things, right? But I think in general, it's a little bit tougher for an owner to do that, because if a resident's going to try to push the boundaries, they're more likely to do so with an owner who at the end of the day is the decision maker, versus with a property manager where I can say, hey, listen, I'm the good guy. I want to do this and this and this for you, but I can't be, and it's my job, and I'm sorry, and then they understand that a little bit more than, hey, well, why can't you waive my late fee, Mr. Owner? You are the owner, and you can decide, can I waive?
Right, and my situation. I've been working hard. I've been working 2 jobs, overtime, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And yeah, it gets tricky in those situations.
Yeah, it's the same process. Like if you think of like a for sale by owner sign, right? I think they're going to get preyed upon the people that are trying to look out there for a deal, right? And with owners, unless an owner has very, very strict policies and procedures where they can be fair but firm, a lot of times the resident will just push the boundaries to see how much they can get away with, because it is the owner, versus, hey, I'm renting from a property management company. These are the rules. That is that.
That makes sense. Jeff, you've provided a wealth of information during this webinar with Will and Friends Live. It's way past 30 minutes. I appreciate you taking so much time out of your busy day to be able to talk to us and share with us good business practices, or even what to look out for a good property manager, or what are telltale signs for a bad property manager. And also you shared with us what's going on in the real estate property management space or investment space in California for 2020. And it's ongoing, it's changing. Things are gonna happen once lawsuits come up, or once decisions are made from the courts on certain things. And so Jeff is up to date. He's up to date on all that information. He's seeking out information and answering questions that people have. And so if you have any other questions about property management that we can be talking about for future webinars, our goal is to have this webinar same time next week on a different topic that you might have, or you might have a question on, or if Jeff has an idea about, we can be talking about that. So feel free to let us know. I've made note of Jeff's contact information in the comment section there in Facebook Live, and then we can be posting that if you're interested, where you can reach Jeff. But Jeff, maybe you can also let people know, where can they find you if they have questions?
The best way to reach out to me is via email. Just go ahead and shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to respond. And we can do it via email or phone call. But yeah, send me an email. So you can reach me at Jeff. So that's JEFF at Good Steward PM. Spelled out STEW.com.
Perfect. Well, again, Jeff, thank you so much for your time. Look forward to doing another webinar with you. And until next time, keep you and your family safe and take care.
Sounds good. Have a good one, Will.
See you, man. Thank you.